My departure for Ingolstadt was set, a new chapter about to begin. But then, the first true misfortune of my life struck, a shadow falling over our home. My dear sister, Elizabeth, fell gravely ill. My mother, ever the selfless caregiver, nursed her back to health, never leaving her side. Elizabeth recovered, a miracle we all prayed for. But the cost was immense. The illness, relentless and cruel, transferred to my mother, her preserver. The consequences were fatal. Her final moments were filled with a quiet strength that I'll never forget. She called Elizabeth and me to her bedside. On her deathbed, with a faint smile, she joined our hands, whispering her hope for our future union, for us to find happiness together. She died calmly, peacefully, leaving a silence in the house that was louder than any storm. The bitterness of that grief, that profound sense of loss, is a sorrow I now understand all too well. A sorrow that, I believe, in some form, touches every life. Her absence was a void, a wound that time could only begin to mend. The funeral was a blur of somber faces and hushed condolences. For days I wandered the rooms of our house, each object a painful reminder of her presence, her laughter, her love. The weight of it all was immense. I was new to this kind of sorrow, this deep hollowing ache. It felt as if a fundamental part of my world had been stripped away, leaving me exposed and adrift. My father, trying to navigate his own ocean of grief, believed a change of scenery was what I needed. So, my departure for Ingolstadt, once a symbol of exciting new beginnings, was rescheduled. It now felt less like an adventure and more like an escape. I didn't argue. Perhaps a new place, new faces, could distract me from the melancholy that had taken root in my soul. I packed my bags in a daze, my mind replaying her last words, her last gentle touch. The day came to leave. I threw myself into the chaise, the carriage that would carry me away from my home, my family, my past. As the wheels began to turn, I didn't look back. One couldn't. Instead, I sank into the cushions and indulged in the most melancholy reflections. The landscapes blurring past the window were just a meaningless wash of green and brown. I was now alone, truly, utterly alone. The world felt vast and indifferent, and I, a solitary traveler on a path I hadn't chosen. The journey was long, and with every mile, the distance from my former life grew, not just physically, but emotionally. I was heading toward an unknown future, carrying the heavy burden of a sorrowful past. Upon my arrival at the University of Ingolstadt, the bustle of student life was a stark contrast to the quiet grief I carried within me. I felt like a ghost, moving through a world that was vibrant and alive while I was still trapped in the shadows of my loss. I had to begin my studies to find some semblance of normalcy, so I sought out the professors whose lectures I was to attend. By chance, the first person I met was M. Kremp, a professor of natural philosophy. He was a squat man with a gruff voice and a dismissive air. When I told him about the alchemists and mystics I had admired in my youth, Cornelius Agrippa, Paracelsus, scoffed. He called my early studies a waste of time, antiquated nonsense that had been thoroughly disproven. He told me I had to begin my education anew, to unlearn everything I thought I knew. His words were harsh, and his demeanor was anything but inspiring. I left his presence feeling dejected, my initial spark of academic curiosity all but extinguished. He had effectively torn down the foundations of my knowledge without offering anything to replace them. For a moment, I wondered if I had made a terrible mistake in coming here. Discouraged, I almost gave up for the day, but then I remembered another lecture I was scheduled to attend, given by a professor named M. Waldman. I reluctantly made my way to the lecture hall, not expecting much, but the moment M. Waldman began to speak, everything changed. He was the complete opposite of M. Kremp. He was dignified, his voice kind, and his expression benevolent. He spoke not of tearing down old ideas, but of building upon them. He acknowledged the early pioneers, the alchemists, praising their tireless efforts, even if their conclusions were flawed. Then he moved on to the subject of modern chemistry. He spoke with a passion that was infectious. He described it not as a dry, dusty subject, but as a living, breathing field of discovery. He talked of how modern philosophers, the scientists of our day, have performed miracles. They were penetrating the deepest recesses of nature, uncovering the secrets of the universe. Not through magic, but through reason, experimentation, and relentless inquiry. He spoke of the power to command the thunders of heaven and to mimic the earthquake. He painted a picture of science as a force for immense power and potential. As he went on, a fire ignited within me. The grief and melancholy that had clouded my mind for so long began to recede, replaced by a single, powerful surge of excitement and purpose. M. Waldman's words resonated with something deep inside me. My mind was suddenly filled with one thought, one conception, one purpose. So much has been done by the giants who came before me. They have paved the way, shown what is possible. But, I thought, more, far more, will I achieve. A new ambition seized me, grand and all-consuming. I wouldn't just follow in their footsteps. I would pioneer a new way. I would explore powers they hadn't yet dreamed of. I would push the boundaries of knowledge further than ever before. I would be the one to unfold to the world the deepest mysteries of creation. The very secret of life itself seemed within my grasp. I left that lecture hall a different person than the one who had entered. The world, which had seemed so grey and meaningless just hours before, was now bursting with colour and possibility. The grief for my mother was still there, a dull ache in my heart, but it was no longer my sole focus. I now had a mission, a destiny. That single lecture, that 1 hour with M. Waldman, decided my future. From that day forward, my path was set. Science was no longer just a subject of study. It was my calling, my obsession, my entire world. Thanks for watching. If this story sparked something in you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell to follow this journey into the unknown. See you next time.